Council will come to order. All rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans, servicemen and women, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Councilor Kamel.
Here.
Councilor Condon.
Here.
Councilor Crowe.
Here.
Councilor DeMaria. Here. Councilor Matheson.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor O'Malley.
Here.
Councilor Spatafora.
Here.
Councilor Winslow.
Here.
Council President Sika.
Here. Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that MATV is recording tonight's meeting, and a couple of our Malden residents, John Mayara and Brian DeLacy, will also be recording. So just be aware there will be audio and video recording of this meeting. First order of business.
Okay. The municipal scholarship recipients will appear before the City Council.
Councilor Crowe.
We don't have, public comment. Oh. Thank you, Madam President. I thought something else was coming first. So just let me let you know that the municipal scholarships was started in 1997 by then Councilor at Large Joan Chason. And the money is just a voluntary contribution by the city residents. Each of the recipients here, they have to be a Malden resident and really going on to higher education or a certificate program, really to better your life and give back to the community. That's part of the whole thing, is the need and what you've done and some civic and engagement. And what I really always loved about the municipal scholarship, it's not just the people that have just graduated. It's not open to them. It's open to any Malden resident that wants to go back to school or continue their education. So we have 5 recipients this year. I know you all got the memo, and I'm happy that most of them are here tonight. So I want to introduce them. You can stand up, come up. If you want to say anything, you don't have to say anything. But we have Christina Luke. Yay.
She has nowhere to go.
Poor Christina's very nervous, but I told her she didn't have to do anything. But she's a 2018 graduate from Malden High and is currently attending the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy. So we're really excited to be able to help support her education and get to move on. We also have Eric Key. And he's a 2019 graduate from the Mystic Valley Charter School, and he's attending University of Massachusetts at Amherst. We have Shatea Smith. And she's a 2019 graduate from Malden High School and is attending the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. And we also have representing Marissa Vasquez as her mom. She's a 2017 graduate from Malden High School, and she could not be here, and she's attending Loyola University in California, and she could not be here because she's studying abroad in Spain. So we're happy to have her mom with us. And we also have Anthony Cardinale, and who's not here, but he's a 1999 graduate, again, legacy one to go back to school, who's attending Bunker Hill Community College, and he had a class tonight that he just could not miss its finals. So we wanted to congratulate each and every one of them. And so if you want to, maybe I'll take a picture. And it's not a lot of money. It's only $500 per student, but you can buy a book and could do something. So, we're just happy to have them there. So. We also have members of the scholarship committee, Arlene Sepatelli, Unfortunately, Jeannie McQuardo could not be here, and myself and the superintendent is on there, but we need our scholarship committee members to come too.
Okay. Next order of business.
Approval of the minutes for May 28th, 2019, and June 4, 2019.
Councilor Di Maria's motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor? All those opposed? The minutes have been approved. Next order of business.
There's a petition from Comcast for Exchange Street and
Wait a
Middlesex
minute.
Street.
You missed it.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Okay, we have a public comment. We first have Mary Hampton to speak on, I don't know what it says, turf.
We're going to try something a little different this evening for the public comment portion. You can walk over to the podium. You're going to state your name and address, but on the podium, there's a timer.
Okay.
There's a big circle button that says start and stop. Instead of cutting you off at 2 minutes and not really knowing when the 2 minutes is coming,
Okay.
we're going to trust that when the 2 minutes are up, that you're going to end your comments, and we're going to
no,
move on
it
to
won't
the
take
next,
2
if that's
minutes.
okay. Well, just in case.
Yeah, I don't have to do anything.
In
with it,
in
do
the
I?
past, it's kind of been a little abrupt and rude, and
Oh.
trying not to be that way, trying to be a
Someone-
little bit more friendly. So when you're ready to speak,
Okay.
you press the big circle button in the middle that says stop.
Okay, fine.
When you're done, you can press stop.
Which is,
The same button.
okay.
The stop and the stop button.
I didn't bring my
Same.
glasses up with me.
Okay.
I'll be brief. My name is Mary Hampton. I live at 29 Beachview Terrace in Ward 6, Maplewood Highlands. I just want to make a brief comment. I've been searching online for a lot of information regarding the rehabilitation or the work that's going to be done at Roosevelt Field, Roosevelt Park. And I did a fair amount of work, and then I've continued looking. And the one thing I want to talk to tonight is artificial turf and something called a heat island. There is no artificial turf that will not heat up in direct sun. And a number of people, there are a couple of things online recording people going out in 74-degree weather at the kind of midday in the afternoon and taking putting down a thermometer to record the temperature of the artificial turf, and it's always usually above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it heats up. I saw something again today. I looked and I couldn't find any artificial turf that does not heat up in direct sun. So obviously, it seems to me, using artificial turf for the entire Roosevelt Field could well create one of the biggest heat heat zones rather, or heat islands they're called, perhaps in the Western world. I don't know, but it doesn't seem advisable. There are any number, somebody suggested, I think it was Mrs. Tolsop suggested, that the committee should probably be consulting a horticulturalist. Because a horticulturalist could look at the site and find something natural, low maintenance, that will handle a lot of traffic, including little kids running back and forth on it all day long, and hold up just fine and not require a lot of maintenance. Oops, I don't think I did that. Sorry. Anyway, I'll be brief. I'll wrap up right now. This is new. So where was I? All right, so there are some methods of cooling artificial turf with refrigeration underneath. To do that for the entire expanse of Roosevelt Field would be prohibitively expensive, I'm sure. As a taxpayer, I'd say, let's not go there. So if you need artificial turf on a soccer pitch, you need to find some way to cool it. There has to be a refrigeration system underneath it. Or if somebody goes in to play soccer at 5 p.m., the turf is going to be probably 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not going to be good for anybody. So that's something that needs to be looked into, and I think a horticulturalist could probably help you find a low-maintenance, really durable ground cover, and there are many of them low to the ground that can take the abuse of hundreds of little feet and bigger feet running back and forth across them all day long and be fine. There is one alternative, which is a grass, which is a no-mow that grows to about 3 feet high. But you could also look at that. So I think I sent you all a link to that. So, but I really think a horticulturalist could help you come up with something that is natural for most of Roosevelt Field, very durable, low maintenance, and that we can afford. So I ask you to consider that, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Cynthia Palestone.
Caitlin.
Oh, Caitlin, I'm sorry.
Evening, Caitlin. There's a little clear button. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Peel Sloan. I'm a resident in Columbia Street in Councilor Kamel's ward, and like a lot of people in Ward 6, I'm going to be sending my child to Salemwood in a few years. And I'm here to express my deep concern about the Roosevelt Field project as proposed and very strong opposition to a crumb rubber-filled turf field. I think we've heard that the council and the mayor are very interested in looking at organic infill, and that's great. But there are still concerns, as my predecessor at this podium said, there are real heat island effect issues with artificial turf, and the kids at Salemwood School are going to be bearing the brunt of that day after day, whether or not the field is a school property or a city property. And so I think, from what I've heard, the project has not done adequate outreach to the Salemwood School community, to the teachers and the parents, and have not really been meeting the parents where they are, evening meetings as opposed to reaching them at pickup or at school events. I think the city owes the school community more outreach and more work and more money from other sources, if necessary, to really improve the Salemwood community if there's going to be a field that's primarily for youth sports, as opposed to the kids who are going to school there every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Harducci?
Hi, my name is Lilia Hadouche. I live in Ward 5, 60 Crestview Drive, Malden. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As a Malden resident, parent, and taxpayer, I strongly oppose the funding for Roosevelt Field. I oppose spending my money to take off precious, natural grass and replace it with trash. Yes, trash. 40,000 old, crumbled tires from unknown origins, loaded with cancerogens. Tires that cities around the world are paying $100 per ton to get rid of, and buying them with my money and planting them in my daughter's school play space. and please don't expect me to be grateful for that. Jack, 16, Skylar, 14, Anna, 10 years old, and the list goes on and on. All victims of this cramped rubber fields. 253 kids, 198 among them are football players. 60% of the 198 are goalkeepers because they are the ones who are close to permanent contact with the ground. All the same cancer, Hodgkin lymphoma and leukemia, the 253, all blood cancers known in the medical field to be triggered by environmental toxins. These are kids who play couple hours, 1 to 3 hours a week on these fields. I let you imagine the scenario for Salamud kids who will want to run, roll, fall, and sometimes taste their new poisonous gift. I will leave it to your conscience, and I will pray that you step back on this project and never allow Salamud kids to be part of these statistics. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Charles Confrey, Malden High School.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Charlie Conifrey. I'm the athletic director for Malden High School. I'm also the director of physical education and health education for the Malden Public Schools from kindergarten through the 12th grade. I'm here tonight to...
Excuse me, can you give us your address?
Oh, yes. 220 Middle Street, West Newbury, Massachusetts. I'm sorry. I'm here tonight to express my support for the Roosevelt Improvement Project. I grew up on 19 Wade Street, which is, I don't know, a stone's throw from where the Roosevelt Park is. I remember playing on that field, baseball, football. I remember the condition of the field the way it was 25 years ago or so, and the condition of the field is not much different than it was back then. One of my roles as the director of physical education, I'm responsible for providing physical education in the way of curriculum and curriculum implementation for every student in the Malden Public School System, 6,700 or so, give or take. First and foremost, a turf field will provide an endless opportunity for students of the Salem Wood School, which are about 1,200 students, give or take, in regard to expansion of physical education curriculum. In addition to increased physical education opportunities, the turf field will provide students of the Salem Wood School ample space and increased opportunities for recess that currently don't exist. Most importantly, a turf field will provide a safe learning and play environment for students of all ages for the majority of the school year, if not 3/4 of the year, 9 or 10 months. As my other hat as the athletic director, a multi-purpose turf field, it's a dream come true. It really is. Field space across the city is at a minimum, and the demand is high. The addition of a turf field will allow for better playing conditions, opportunities for the Malden High School Athletic Department, the Malden Recreation Department, Malden Youth, and other youth organizations like Malden Papuana, Malden Youth Soccer, Malden Youth Lacrosse. In essence of time here, I'm running out. I'd just like to offer my full support of this project moving forward, and a large-scale safe athletic play surface will increase opportunities for our kids in Malden. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy McDonald.
Kathy McDonald, 11 Fairview Ave, Malden, Mass. As a resident of Ward 5 and a taxpayer in the city of Malden, I do not agree with the artificial turf at the Roosevelt Park at Salem Wood School. I understand that our sports teams need reliable fields. However, I'm not convinced that these fields are safe and healthy for our children. Many of us grew up in Malden. We played on grass. I still think that's the best way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Nyland?
Good evening. Sorry, glasses off. Susan Nyland, 10 Clayton Street, Malden. I'm here tonight to urge the City Council to delay a vote on renovation of Roosevelt Park. My opposition to the proposed renovations is based on the complete lack of involvement of Salem Wood families, students, staff, and neighbors about desired changes to this important green space. Our city prides itself, rightly so, on its diversity and inclusion. In that vein, please consider delaying a final vote on Roosevelt Park until such time as our diverse communities in the Salemwood School area have an opportunity to express their desires. Please spend time and resources on informing families of our students whose native language is not English on the plans for this community space. Please also consider the accommodations for our special needs students. As I stated recently at the school committee meeting, a turf field has zero benefit for our special needs students. Let's take time to consider the needs of Salemwood students and neighborhood families. Let's place their needs for access to healthy green space before those in potential need of financial gain. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian DeLacy?
Hit the button.
Don't-
There's a clear button there, Mr. DeLacy.
Big button, little button. That's, oh, there we go.
Okay.
I think it's gone. Anyways, hi, my name is Brian DeLacy from 1 Earl Street, and I'll try and be brief. I'd like to speak on the agenda item 27519. By the way, thank you for this public comment. A year or so ago, this wouldn't have been possible, so thank you for implementing that. Along with my abbreviated remarks here, I have provided a copy to the clerk for the record. The wording on tonight's agenda mentions synthetic 3 times in the Finance Committee report. It makes no mention of organic. Organic was a significant part of the discussion at the meeting which I attended on 5/28. And somehow it was left out of the wording on the bonding. Therefore, as a result, I respectfully ask that the Finance Committee report be returned to the committee without further discussion for correction amendment and further discussion as needed, so that it in fact faithfully reflects the deliberations of that meeting. The Roosevelt Park project has $250,000 allocated to it. I'd like to see some of that money be spent towards a proposal for natural green grass as well as other alternate organic alternatives. This is a big, important, significant financial decision for the council, and it's, I think, important to note that this is a moving landscape. The California EPA is now reporting their latest findings, and their findings focus quite extensively on the most sensitive populations, such as children, which is what's important to Salemwood. Finally, I'd ask that the city add to its website some kind of a statement from the Malden Public Health Department, the same way that it addresses nicotine and vaping addictions, specifically to post the MIAA heat modification policy. People have talked about the increased levels of heat on playing fields. They're significant, and they should be looked into. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah Stranger?
All right, I have a question before I hit the button. I'm going to be very brief, and my friend Glenn didn't know that he had to sign up ahead of time. Can he have the rest of my 2 minutes?
Say that again.
Glenn, yeah, I'll add him.
Okay, that's fine.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Strayer, and I live at 43 Havelock Street in Malden. I have been a Ward 5 resident and taxpayer for 15 years and a teacher at the Salem Wood School for 20 years. I'd like to go on record, like many of my fellow residents and teachers that are here with us tonight, stating that I oppose the use of any surfacing material for Roosevelt Field that is not natural grass, including any artificial turf, organic or otherwise. We've been out for recess most days in the past month, even after nights that it rains, and it's been fine. We've enjoyed being out on the grass. Thank you.
Hi, Clint Beklowski, 78 Bowers Avenue. And this is my son, Cohen. He'll be turning 5 in 6 days. I've been coaching U5 soccer for 2 seasons, and it's great. I've also played soccer my whole life on grass. And we play at Emmerich Field, and there's a great hill there with lots of big trees, and the kids enjoy rolling around in the grass and having a great time that way. Playing soccer my whole life, I've never once played on turf until I was in college. It was a really incredible experience. I enjoyed it, but to think of him playing on a turf field, growing up at Salemwood, we're zoned for Salemwood, so there's a good chance that he'll be there in just a few short months. I just can't even fathom that, to be quite honest. I think this is a really short-sighted solution, and I just, it only came to my attention a few days ago, so I apologize I wasn't able to sign up for advance, and I'd like my comments also to go on record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Montfrey?
Hi, I'm Amanda Matthew. I live at 81 Wade Street, Ward 6. I am a resident, obviously, and also a teacher at Salemwood. And I oppose this, and one thing that really bothers me is the fact that with over 1,200 students, not one family member was notified about any of this. When I went to the Ward 5 meeting, I only heard about that because of Facebook. And people in that meeting said, well, it went home to all of the people that play sports and all the families, but not all of our students do get to afford that type of luxury. And we have over 1,200 students, again, multiple languages. Teachers were also not notified. And this is where the predominant amount of time is spent on that field. And it's not fair to them. It is not fair to the teachers. No one talked about the construction time. Where are the kids going to go when or if this happens? And the flooding is an issue, but if you're going to take the time to repair the flooding, to put the turf on, then why can't you repair the flooding and just put natural grass? Thank you.
Joe Levine.
Joe Levine, 395 Charles Street, Malden, Massachusetts. I'm the Recreation Director for the City of Malden, and I am here to endorse and in favor of the turf at Roosevelt Park. I, too, like the Salemwood family, care about the kids in Malden, the 4,000 kids that go to our schools. And the big thing that I get from parents is if they aren't doing these programs that we do, whether it's basketball, whether it's softball, whatever it is, they'd be home playing with their computers. I think there's a great opportunity to be able to promote more programs in our city for the young kids all the way up to the high school kids on that new turf field. I do care about the kids, and in my heart of hearts, if I thought this was a wrong choice, I'd be standing up here saying that it's the wrong choice, but I do think it's the right thing to do. We just don't have, years ago, parents let their children go to any park they wanted to. They could take their bikes, they could walk down there. And I hear a lot of talk about youth sports. It's for youth sports, it's for youth sports. It's for the children of Malden. It's not just for youth sports. We could go out there and if that's the way it has to be done, organized, so be it. If we could get 2,000 kids out there and organize sports, and we'd only get 2 people or 12 people on their bicycles down to the park and play it, I'd rather go for the organized sports. So I'll just make it brief. I'm in favor of the turf field, and I hope your council is taking it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Sullivan.
I'll be brief. Good evening, Kathleen Sullivan, 27 Oliver Street. I'm here to speak in opposition of the plan to remove the grass and install artificial turf on the Roosevelt Field. Today, several people were able to go out and collect signatures from 193 people, which included Salemwood staff, Malden residents, and the signatures of 108 7th and 8th grade students at the Salemwood Field. A few of those 7th and 8th grade students decided to go out and educate their peers about the plan to remove the grass and cover the field they run and play on for recess with crumb rubber and plastic covering. Sorry about that. Today, our health teacher educated the students about the renovation, and they were very upset to learn about the plan and more upset to learn that they didn't know anything about it. The petition read, "Dear Mayor Christensen and Malden City Council, we believe the Salemwood school students deserve a grass park to run and play on. Grass is the only option for Malden to truly be part of the Green New Deal, a national initiative which supports sustainable global environment for the future of our children. Thank you for considering our thoughts on this renovation. With respect."
Thank you. Jim Cahill.
Excuse me, good evening. I'm Jim Cahill, 152 Forest Street in Malden, lifelong resident of the city. I've been president of Malden Youth Lacrosse and its founder for the last 20 years, and we almost exclusively played on turf fields, starting in Malden Catholic 20 years ago. In those 20 years, we have not had one major injury to any of our kindergarten through 8th grade students or players. We never had to cancel a game for any reason other than a thunderstorm. None of our parents have ever complained about any of their children playing on the turf surfaces or any children becoming ill from those playing surfaces. And we have not had any heat-related injuries to the kids that I know of. Malden needs accessible, versatile playing surfaces for the youth and the people of all ages. Parks and sports fields with synthetic turf promote year-round activity on safe and resilient surfaces. As Malden Youth Lacrosse continues to grow, Roosevelt Park would be a huge step in the right direction for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it? No other public comment. Next order of business.
This petition, Comcast, Exchange Street and Middlesex Street North, grant of location to install underground conduit for service to 50 Pleasant Street.
Al Rugman, Utility Coordinator for Comcast. I believe you had plans for this already submitted. We're looking for a grant location. We want to place one 4-inch conduit from an existing manhole over on Exchange Street, around the corner up on Middlesex to come into the rear of number 50 Pleasant Street to provide service to them.
You good? Okay. This is a public hearing, so we're going to declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Hearing none and seeing none, I declare the portion of this hearing closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this petition? Comcast at 50 Pleasant Street? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Councilor Winslow.
It's not an opposition. I just what's your time frame for doing this work? Just, I know we have a project to reconstruct Exchange Street, so what's your timing for this?
I believe as soon as they have the permission, they will move forward with getting the permits to do the construction.
All right, yeah, so thanks, good.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition of this petition? Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of the hearing closed. On Councilor O'Malley's motion to grant with the following conditions: that the engineer be called when DigSafe is notified, and that the streets and sidewalks be restored to satisfaction of the director of the DPW. All those in favor? All those opposed? The petition has been granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business.
Okay, self-service gas station, Gibbs Oil, 728 Main Street, Malden. Do you want me to do them all, Barbara?
Councilor Murphy, would you like the clerk to read all the license? Or do you want to do them individually? I'm sorry,
Read them
hold.
all?
All together, thank you.
Okay. Outdoor parking, Northeast Transportation and Snow Service, Inc., 531 Broadway, Malden, 5 spaces, that's a renewal. Self-service gas station, Wash Depot, 1, Inc., 333 Eastern Avenue, Malden. Self-service gas station, Speedway LLC, 214 Broadway, Malden. There's a lodging house at 52 Maple Street, Malden, a renewal. And a pool table, new, Miss Sousa's Barber Shop, 16 Lebanon Street, Malden, 1 table.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer these petitions to license, all those in favor? All those opposed? The petitions have been referred. Next order of business.
This is a resolve by the Malden City Council that any person serving in a part-time capacity as Community Preservation Act Administrator appointed by the Community Preservation Committee be designated as a special municipal employee.
Councilor Winslow, Councilor Spatafor, does either one of you want to speak on this paper? Councilor Spatafor.
Yeah, so we're asking the council, and I think this is something we probably should send to personnel to discuss. So I'm going to recommend this go to personnel to discuss. So this is something where we would like, there's a member on the Community Preservation Act to be deemed as a special municipal employee. We've done this in the past with various other types of employment status. So this is something that came up, and Council Winslow and myself had a discussion. So we would like to at least look at having this employee designated with that, and I would want to refer that to personnel on the council's recommendation.
On Councilor Spatafor's motion to move to appointments and personnel, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter has been referred. Next order of business.
Order that $350,000 is appropriated from available PEG Access Enterprise Funds available for free cash and to fund public education and government access related improvements to the City Hall building.
Councilor Kamel for the paper.
This is a fund for these particular needs. The orders come down from the request has come down from our finance team to shift these funds over. I want to move to refer this to finance, and so we'll have further discussion on it.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this matter to finance, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter has been referred. Next order of business.
Ordinance, be it hereby ordained that section 8.42.5 of the revised ordinance of 1991 be further amended as related to the police patrolman's salary schedule.
On Councilor Spatafor's motion to ordain this ordinance, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson? Yes. Councilor Kamel? Yes. Councilor Condon? Yes. Councilor Crowe? Yes. Councilor DeMaria? Yes. Councilor Matheson? Yes. Councilor Murphy? Yes. Councilor O'Malley? Yes. Councilor Spatafora? Yes. Councilor Winslow? Yes. Councilor Sika?
Yes.
Passes.
The matter is ordained. Next order of business.
Okay. Committee report, Finance Paper 242 of 19, ordered that $1,450,000 is appropriated to pay cost of design and construction of Roosevelt Park, and to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under Mass General Law, Chapter 4471, Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the city thereof. The mayor and the treasurer are each authorized to contract for, expend any federal, state, or other aid available for the project, including the acceptance of any grant related to such project, and to take any other act necessary to carry out the project. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by like amount. The repayment of said loan will be made by utilizing available Community Preservation Act funds pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, as previously authorized and approved by the Malden Community Preservation Committee. The Malden Community Preservation Committee is recommending a bond of 10 years term for $1,450,000 at no more than 4.25 interest to fund the CPC eligible aspects of the Roosevelt Park rehabilitation project as applied for in fiscal year 2019 by the Malden Redevelopment Authority, and to be paid from the budget reserve account of the CPA funds. The Malden CPC has also voted that the Roosevelt Park project must include the outdoor classroom as stated in the fiscal year 2019 CPA funding application. The Malden CPC has voted that the Roosevelt Park project must include the drainage improvements as outlined in the original proposal and must be made to the surrounding wetlands. Although Malden CPC funds are not available for any synthetic turf option, the Malden CPC has respectfully requested that the applicant considers several alternative synthetic products as new technology has entered the synthetic turf market. The applicant has agreed to consider an alternative to the municipal bidding process.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Kamel for the committee.
Thank you, and thank you to all in attendance who have come to speak on this issue. This was in front of the Finance Committee on May 28th. Just to break it down, we actually had two separate motions. Both of those were read by the clerk, went into what was read by the clerk. The first motion was to accept the recommendations of the CPC committee, and I won't reread the entire thing, but just to recap, that the project, so the CPC recommended the 10-year, $1.45 million bond at no more than 4.25 interest, and that the project must include the outdoor classroom and drainage improvements that also include the surrounding wetlands. Separately from that, we had a vote on the the actual bonding measure itself, again, read by the clerk, and we voted, so to accept the CPC recommendations, we had 5 votes yes and 1 present. To recommend the bonding mechanism as amended, we had a few clerical and grammatical amendments. The Finance Committee voted to recommend that out, favorably 5 yes and 1 present. So at the meeting, we had quite a discussion. It was, first of all, it was attended by Steve O'Neill, Deb Burke, and Patrick McGuire, who's an architect and sports field consultant. Mr. O'Neill, an engineer, has worked for the city in many different projects. Did a brief overview of the project and its history, including the poor condition of the field and the drainage issues that that motivated this project. They looked at alternatives and felt the most effective rehab of the field would be the synthetic turf. Patrick McGuire also brought information and distributed outlining several sources in regard to exposure and toxicity concerns, and we have that. That's part of the public record. Folks can take a look at that. Mr. McGuire maintained that no study had definitively shown any, a little bit of feedback now. No study had definitively shown negative consequences. That's separate from other studies we've been shown that recommend that because they don't know what may happen, recommend not using it. But to date, according to Mr. McGuire, there's no peer-to-peer studies that say they found definitive links. So the conversation proceeded, and we talked about the pros and cons, including difficulty that our city would have maintaining a grass field. And the committee felt we should definitely be moving in the direction of an alternative organic fill. The plan right now is to price both the organic and the crumb rubber. But it was definitely a feeling that we should be moving towards the organic fill and not the crumb rubber. And lastly, we received several emails for and against the proposal that were entered into record, and those are also public record. And I'll let the debate continue.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam President. Mr. O'Neill is here in the audience, just if anyone does have any questions for him. So he's in the back of the room. We'll be happy to join us. I do want to go on record. There's been a lot of talk about crumb rubber, and I think people think, for whatever reason, that that's the way we're going. I want to go on record here as saying that that has never been the way that we were determined to go. The mayor and myself have always talked about looking at all of the options. Our goal is to provide the best playing field that we can for everyone involved, and to keep the park and the playground open as much as possible during rain seasons, snow seasons, etc. So, to the fact that everyone keeps talking about crumb rubber, there has been no decision made to go with crumb rubber. We are very open to look at all different types of infill material, whether that be organic or some other synthetic infill. There are always new products coming on the marketplace. I'm sorry for the feedback on this. Do I have that? Okay, try that. Is that better? There are always new...
Hold on, it might be the podium. I apologize. I shut it off.
Okay, there are always, that's a little better. There are always new products coming on the market. Just last week we were talking about a new wood infill that is relatively new to the marketplace that shows tremendous promise. This project is going to, if it passes, will take, it hasn't even been designed yet. The project design phase will be 9 months out. And then if it passes and we move forward, we're talking about a year to a year and a half more. So we're looking at not only what exists today, but what might exist in the future, and what will provide the best playing field surface for everyone involved. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there, that before any of this came up, we were talking about, alternatives other than crumb rubber. So, and that is something that the mayor is committed to, and I am committed to looking at. So I just want to go on record saying that.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. And before I start, thank you to Councilor Murphy and to the mayor for investigating into something that is not synthetic, as is stated in this paper. So look, at the end of the day, to me, it boils down to a soggy field that is unusable or a hot field that is unusable. What do we really know about crumb rubber? How about a third option, as I have said publicly several times, an organic natural fill? I did a little research, and let me just read what I found. Cork is actually the outer bark of the cork oak tree, and the structure and composition of the membranes make it very strong and waterproof. Cork is used for all kinds of things. It's naturally resilient, antibacterial, hyperallergenic, has low connectivity, and anti-static properties. Cork provides energy absorption upon impact, and it quickly regains shape and structure after being stepped or pounded on. With all these characteristics, it's plain to see why athletes will benefit from cork in the infill. Coconut husk fibers have their own added benefit. While coconut husks were previously considered waste, recent studies reveal the benefits causing an increase in use for environmentally friendly products. Coconut husks are not proof, are anti-mold and non-toxic and have excellent traction in wet areas. No worries for players with nut allergies either. Coconut is not related to nuts or peanuts, so cross-activity with those that are tree nut allergies is very rare. If I were to stand up on the highest hill in Malden, I would shout, safety first, especially for our youth. I support this project, and I strongly urge we require the process to not just consider alternative synthetic fill, but to require an organic fill, and that is my amendment to the paper, Madam President. Thank you.
Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. This vote, at times like this, where you have, I think there was like 14 people who spoke against it, and with all due respect, there's times when you agree, there's times when you disagree. Growing up, we never had the opportunity to play on a field like I see at Malden High School. We played where Atlantic woodworking was knocked down, and you never knew which hole you were going to step in, a piece of glass. And then we played where the gas tanks were, over where now sits Callahan Field. But I think in the end, when I hear from Ward 5 Councilor Barbara Murphy, and she says that the mayor and her have had conversations, that they will look at every alternative possible to come up with the safest and best athletic field for our kids. I have a lot of faith in those people to do that, and I'm sure they will. So I'm in favor of this project. I don't think that you can stop moving forward on this project. There's problems down that park. I only wish I had those problems, that I could have a chance at a field like this at Deva Park. But unfortunately, I don't think we could afford it because it's over 7 acres. So, I mean, I say move forward on this, move forward in a way that we're going to provide a safe field for our kids. I know coaches, I know people that run programs. I have not heard of any kind of situation where the heat that's generated from these fields have caused a problem. I remember as a youngster, you never knew who was going to twist an ankle because you were stepping in all kinds of holes and slipping and pulling hamstrings and ACLs. But, you know, the field, you look at Pearl Street Stadium now, it's like it's brand new from 7, 8 years ago. But I say you have to move forward on this, correct the drainage situation, and just continue to move forward and put up the best product that we can to assure the safety and the well-being of all the kids, but also provide them with a field to play on that they can expand the programs that I know Joe Levine and these other people that run these leagues want to do, but they're handcuffed from doing it. So my vote would be to move forward on this.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I think one of the things it shows is that Roosevelt Field is very important and to our community, that people do feel passionately about it, and that's why I have been very adamant and work with the mayor and the Malden Redevelopment Authority to work to get this project moving forward, because in my heart, it really is making sure we have something that is investing in our students at Salem Wood as well as kids throughout our city. And it's been a journey over the past year. And one of the things I've heard, and consistently I've served on the last two versions of our Open Space and Recreation Committee. We've heard consistently that we need fields. And there's been some huge demographic changes that have happened in Malden since I've lived here for the past 30 years. We used to have, I think even back in the day, we had 4 Little League baseballs leagues. And they had various fields that they helped care for. Because of changes in interest, now we're down to 1 baseball, youth baseball thing. While at the same time, so we might have 200 youth baseball kids, we've had this tremendous growth in youth soccer, over 800 kids now. I don't know what the latest number is. And lacrosse, 20 years ago, very few people played that. Suddenly, kids in Malden are playing lacrosse. So there's a need for athletic fields in Malden. And there's a tremendous need at the Salem Wood School for kids to be physically active. So there's a need here. So that's why I personally wanted to see as one of the things to get done as getting elected as new council to see this happen. And one of the things, and I sincerely met with Kathy Sullivan and heard about turf field, and that was the first thing I asked last year. What can we do to see about saving the grass? And the MRA came up, and we looked at that sincerely. Some extra financial costs for grass. I think that's the load that possibly could be handled. But what really got me is that in any project you undertake, there's always risks. And we heard from Kathy and all you about the risks people associate possibly with crumb rubber. And I think all the councilors here, we understand. I mean, I've looked at the toxicology reports. I understand that the best information is those are, there's no evidence of a cluster of cancer when you do that, but there's always that uncertainty. And it's appropriate as a community to say, well, that's something we want to act and lower that risk by using organic fill. But there's also financial risk here. And as someone who's in my professional life worked in Malden, in Somerville, in Gloucester on parks and fields, and seeing and working with people like our Department of Public Works, working to maintain these facilities day in, day out. And I gotta say, they do the best with the resources they got. It's always been in DPWs that I work with. Working on the fields is a big thing. Right come the spring, they're out there working on it. And when I hear the challenges that have happened on this field that was improved when Salem was built, over 20 years of trying to maintain it, and to hear our DPW director say, you could spend that $2.4 million on a grass field, but in a few years, that money will be wasted because it's probably going to look like it is. And then looking at some of the information that has been presented by folks about communities that are pursuing grass, several things. The one thing you do to preserve your grass field is not use it a lot. So the communities that have those fields very much limit their use. If you go down along the bike trail, see Anna Parker Park in Saugus, they have closed off basically a public park for the youth soccer to have as grass. It's a nice field, but it's no longer really a public park. They have to resod it. So there's some real limitations to that. A turf field, it definitely can be used as many as 15 hours a day, if not unlimited. So at least three times the use. And that way kids, as our director of physical education and health said, the kids at Salem Wood could use that for physical education. They would be free to use it at recess. If we went to a grass field that we invested that amount of money, we would be closing that off for a substantial amount of times for Salem Wood students. So I think that is something that's not worthwhile. And as much as I personally really want to see grass, I think that organic fill is a great option. The evidence from the scientific papers that have looked at the heat island effect, the organic infills have a lot less temper differential than crumb rubber, so that's something appropriate. I mean, I do have to say, as someone who grew up in California, played ball all summer long, sometimes I played out in 111 degrees, it's possible to be out there. I think it's ironic when my brother came out to run for from LA to run the marathon, I mentioned this issue. In California, they see a turf field as green because it saves them a lot of water, and it's a lot hotter out there. So people are dealing with this. We have turf fields in our community, as Councilor Condon mentioned, that our students, I mean, if you go to Salem Wood, you're going to end up at Malden High. You will be using McDonald's Stadium in the field there. I think that we are being both responsible to the students by considering the organic fill, but also being responsible to the taxpayers and making sure if we invest over $2 million that we're going to have a field that's not soggy in 3 years, and we're replacing the grass every 3 years, which what you really need to do with a sod field. And I know there's an issue about warranties that come up. You don't get a warranty on a grass field. After 2 times that field is mowed, it's all on us. So I think as I see it, we going with organic fill is a way to minimize any health risks to our students, but it also is a way to minimize the risk of related to a major investment of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I plan to vote in favor of the paper that's before us. I grew up right down the street from Roosevelt Park. I lived on Plaisted Road growing up, and the field, even in its best days, going back 70 years ago, was always a field that had problems. And that to have that field to be like Pearl Street Stadium or what is now McDonald's Stadium would be a dream that I would never think would be able to come true. So the opportunity that we have now, looking at the various products that'll go in there, the fact that we're going to have so much more use of Roosevelt Park with this project going forward is a no-brainer for me. I have parks, and although this park is now in Ward 5, it's right next to Ward 7. So my Ward 7 constituents will be using this and do use this park often. The other thing I would say is that there are parks that I have in Ward 7, the Lincoln Common and Miller Park, where soccer players who would want to come in to use those fields during the fall season, the rainy season, would tear up the fields, would leave big patches of dirt that was there. The field would be a mess. We need more turf fields for those kind of heavy sports that are being played there. And so I'm glad to support the paper that's before us. I congratulate the people that came out here this evening for showing their civic interest and their civic pride. I think that those of us who sit on the council, though, we have to look at a number of different issues, the costs, the overall use, the maintenance, the usability of it all. And when I stack up all those things, I say the paper before us is worth supporting. And that's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
So when this first came in front of us, the addition of turf and the removal of grass didn't really sit well with me. I mean, just for context, one of the other things that that I'm looking at doing in Ward 6 is, protecting green space, that's city-owned green space, and continuing to hold on to that little precious green space that we have here in the city. Another thing that I did is one of the people who pushed the ban on plastic bags, specifically because of my concern with too much plastic in the environment. What I think started to change my mind a little bit is when we were discussing with Steve O'Neill we were saying, look, we're taking a look at what it's going to cost for us to do this turf versus an alternative that would be grass, and you're telling us that the grass would be a more expensive alternative even at first cost, which was sort of didn't make sense to us. And as we, no pun intended, dug into that a little bit more, what we were informed is the surface that we're talking about right now at Roosevelt Field, it's not this pristine, natural surface whatsoever. It's what, I'll call it a euphemism. It's called organic fill. I'm sorry, not organic fill, getting two things, sorry. Urban fill, it's called urban fill. And it's basically, it's, for all intents and purposes, it's trash from construction sites. It's things that have been in industrial sites that have been, in ash that have been accumulated over a century in a very industrial city. I mean, you've got lead in that soil, you've got benzene, you've got all kinds of things that are not, absolutely not healthy as it is right now. And the cost of it, for a grass field to do it now, if they even touch it, what they have to do is they have to dig down 3 feet, remove 3 feet of soil, and now that soil is considered hazardous waste. We have to find a landfill within Massachusetts because we can't transport it over state lines. We have to find a landfill to put that hazardous waste in. That is what is there now. The reason that the difference in the expense is that if we install the turf field, we only have to remove 15 inches versus 36 inches because the turf field itself acts as a cap on whatever exists there. So again, this isn't to sort of find some excuse to disagree with all the folks here, but you've got to look at what's actually there. It's hazardous as it is right now, and it's been hazardous since, Councilor Condon was twisting his ACL over there, and pieces of glass. That's one point I wanted to make, but I also want to make another point. And I admire as Councilor Murphy was talking about, the hard push to make sure we look at all options. I'm not comfortable with the crumb rubber, and I want to echo what Councilor DiMaria is saying. This is our one bite at the apple. My vote tonight is predicated upon whether we can, what assurances can we have that we do not go in the direction of crumb rubber? I mean, I don't want to torpedo this by any stretch of the imagination, but I want us to have every indication, every possible assurance we can at this point that we're not going to go in the direction of crumb rubber, that we are going to have an organic fill in there, because that is one way to mitigate one of the risks. It doesn't mitigate the heat island risk. I will concede that, but it does mitigate the concerns about crumb rubber and as it breaks down over time. So, I mean, I'm open to suggestion, but I think as a body we really need to make our will on that known forcefully and make sure we go in that direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
I don't disagree with the way that Councilor DiMaria and Councilor Kamel are moving. I too would like organic. What I don't want to do is I don't want to tie our hands if something else comes on the market in the meantime that's even better. I mean, one of the reasons I like the coconut husk to begin with was the fact that it actually does take away some of the heat island effect, as it's called, and it also, from what I've been told, provides a better performance playing field for the players. So, there are those two other added elements. But I would, if you would indulge me, I would like Mr. O'Neill to just come up and talk about, his thoughts of us limiting our options at this point. As I said, just last week we heard of a new infill. And I'm just concerned that if we just say organic, I mean, maybe we say no crumb rubber, but we leave everything else open. But if we just limit it to organic, we might be, carving out something that, would be even better than where we are today. So, Mr. O'Neill, could we just have your input on those topics, please?
Oh, hold on, you shut it off.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Good evening. I'm Steve O'Neill with Hayner Swanson. I'm a consultant on many of the projects that are ongoing in the city, and hopefully will be involved in this project as it moves forward. To speak specifically to the question about the infill. We understand that the infill is certainly a hot button issue. I respect and appreciate the concerns that we've heard from a number of parties for crumb rubber. I will say that to date, there are no studies that I am aware of that have conclusively determined that crumb rubber exposes any users to an elevated health risk. So having said that, the scope of the studies that have been done recently are limited in nature. Some of them focus on very specific things. So the concerns, I understand the concerns. I'll echo the counselor's comment that in my industry, safety is paramount. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And when we look at the infills that are available, I think it would be maybe a misstep for the city to limit itself in the consideration of the spectrum of alternative infills that are available. There's a wide spectrum of potential candidates for infill. We go to the one extreme of the crumb rubber, and we go to the other extreme of plant-based or organic infills, of which there are several that Councilor Di Maria, I think, pretty well summed it up. In between, there are also other options that are available. For example, there are plastic pellets. It's called TPE. It's basically a plastic infill, so that's being used in the world today. There is acrylic-coated sand as another consideration that could be taken under advisement. There is different rubber that's used. There's EPDM rubber, which is rubber that's typically what you'll see like commercial-based products like roofing, for rubber roofing or for waterproofing. And that material is being recycled and reused as infill. So what I would suggest is that it may be advisable for the city to put some type of stipulation in the approval that would require the team, as we get into design development, to consider the spectrum of alternative infills. I think it would be probably helpful to the process as we go through the design development process. We can bring information through the process that will educate the people beyond what you find with a simple Google search. So I think the alternatives, they come with advantages, they come with disadvantages. They come with advantages as they relate to the performance of the surface, the playability, the reliability, injury potential, maintenance considerations, and of course cost. So there are, as I say, there are advantages and disadvantages that have to be weighed. So I would encourage the city, respectful of the concern for crumb rubber. Crumb rubber continues to be the predominant infill material that's used in the industry right now. That continues to be the case. EPA is conducting their study on a study that has a broader scope. I understand that the results they're reviewing, it's been peer reviewed. I understand that they're hopeful that that report will be issued. We may well find that before the time this project goes to bid, there is the possibility that EPA could come out with its findings, with a recommendation that may allay a lot of the concerns, that may bring crumb rubber back to the table as a potential material. So I would just encourage the city to think about the spectrum of opportunities that are available to it, and it allow the design team to help educate the decision makers in the city so that the best decision is made from the city, considering all of the variables that have to be taken into consideration on a project of this scope and complexity and magnitude. It's clearly our goal to provide a field that will serve the city of Malden well and will serve all of the users, from the children at Salem Wood School to the youth sports, to the adult programs that use the field, to people from other cities and towns that may be interested in using Malden's facility if there are hours available. And that's our goal. We want the city of Malden to have a field that it's going to be proud of and that it will serve you well in the years to come. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Murphy, did you have anything else to say?
No, I'll let the councilors start.
Okay. Councilor Camille.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. I appreciate all the guidance and help you've put in so far on this and any other projects in the city, so thank you. I want you to comment on, if you may, how constrained would you be? I understand your point about the spectrum of possibilities. How constrained would you be if we just explicitly limit it or explicitly exclude just crumb rubber and allow for the conversation from that point on? Does that tie how much does that tie your hands?
It doesn't tie my hands.
Right, what ties are?
My concern is that it may push the city to a decision that may not be the best decision as it considers all of the factors that should be considered.
So what were you, can you just reiterate a point you made? What do you mean by in over the course of time we may change our opinion on crumb rubber? What would you anticipate being something that would change our mind?
Well, I would think that if I would hope that if in the window of time we have before this field goes to construction, that should EPA come back with its findings, that they conclude and they say that this study concludes that a crumb rubber infill does not subject the public or users of that facility to any elevated health risk, crumb rubber could be the best decision for the city to make.
I just don't want to find us making the best decision for the city being made based solely on the fact that crumb rubber is probably going to be the cheapest. What about a stipulation that says you will not consider crumb rubber unless EPA issues findings in the meantime explicitly saying they don't find it's a health risk? Right. I mean, I want to be, I want to work with the folks here and have this move forward. But I mean, you just, we can't just dismiss the risk. I don't think.
And I guess as I sit here as the consultant, I can design whatever field it is that is the pleasure of the city of Malden. In the event that you put in a facility, let's take, for example, the coconut fiber. Yeah, it's something that deserves consideration, but it's a surface that's high maintenance. It's an infill material that, when dry, it becomes airborne. So you have to work. So now that fiber becomes airborne. There's inhalation potential. So now you introduce the step in the maintenance process of wetting the field as necessary. So there are a lot of things that have to be considered. So that's my only concern, is that in making a decision tonight to restrict it to something, it could be a short-sighted decision when you step back and you consider all of the various things that have to be taken into account. So that's the only concern that I would have. But as I said, if members of the council feel that they have researched it thoroughly, they feel they've educated themselves, and they feel that the best way to go forward would be to restrict it. If that restriction is put on the project, the design team would design a project that's the pleasure of the city of Malden.
And this is the one last thing I'll make a comment. My only concern is that this body right now, this is our chance. We don't have a chance to kind of come back and make any comment on it or exert any authority after tonight. I mean, this is the authorization. So, and I realize it's early in the process, but these are the tools with which we have to work. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, but I have a question, a couple comments. Steve, I mean, I think what you were trying to say is basically that there are inorganic infills that are alternate to rubber material. I mean, rubber, in some forms of rubber is actually a natural thing. So, that's what you're trying to say, like the sand covered with an acrylic or something like that. There might be some alternatives that are inorganic or mixes of inorganic materials that are other than crumb rubber. So that's sort of to summarize. So that's the thing. If you say organic, you're talking about, I mean, I guess even organic, is that plant material or what? So just a few other things. I think there is, one limitation here related to what we can do is that under the Community Preservation Act, we can only, if we're asking for something that costs more than is budgeted, I mean, that is something that's outside of our authority as a city council on this. So, and my understanding is that the alternatives are likely more expensive, so that's one issue. I mean, my one suggestion might be to say that if crumb rubber, I guess my kind of friendly amendment would be the amendment to say that no contract shall be signed for crumb rubber infill unless that contract is approved by the city council. So that would give the project all it needs. You can do the alternatives, but we wouldn't be authorizing the signing of that contract. And if it's more, we have to figure out how to come up with the money anyway. So, I mean, I think that would be the one way to make sure it's just not signed because crumb rubber is what we can afford. I mean, if it's, right now we know is infill, if it's more expensive than what's budgeted right now, we got to come up with the money some way anyway. So it's sort of to put a brake on it to make sure that we're not just doing crumb rubber because it's what's in our budget. So so that would be my friendly amendment to say that any contract for this field that is proposed for crumb rubber infill be approved by this body. Okay, all right, so however, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Councilor Spatafora.
I think at least I think Councilor DeMaria, Councilor Kamel, and Councilor Winslow, and Councilor Murphy have so far spoken in terms of all wanting to have the ability to decide at a later time on the fill. Inorganic, organic, whatever. So my questions procedurally are, we're bonding for 1.450. If Mr. O'Neill comes back and all the alternatives, let's say there's a list of 10, are more than 1.450, we have to approve that number anyways, correct? Well, just hear me out. But if they go above, do we have to, as a body, approve that? And if they come below, okay, so my second question would be, I thought part of the CPC, we also get to look at the design before it gets voted on. Is that not true? We don't have a design yet, though. Yeah, and I'll yield. I just got a couple. Procedure, like, what is the process if it's more, et cetera? Because that would framework. I would think that would framework all our amendments rather. I yield. Thank you, Madam President.
Just to your comment, Councilor Spatafora, previously, this body voted a $250,000 finance paper, which came out of the CPC committee, and the $250,000 was to do the design and development phase of the project, which hasn't started yet. The remainder that's in front of you this evening, and I know Julian Orsino is here as well, is to advance the bonding scenario to cover the construction part of the project. And then we will mingle that with other funds that we have from a private entity to pay for the turf.
Councilor Kamel.
And this 1.45 bonded against CPC, that portion of the funding can't directly be used on the turf. So it would be private funds that would be funding the turf anyway. But however, we would be enabling that to happen by funding this.
That's correct. The private funds will subsidize the entire cost of the artificial turf, as well as some of the soft costs associated with that.
Okay. And just in my only, you had a good point. I just meant if it came if all of the alternatives came below that, and then you could choose among those, I just don't want to see us choosing the bargain basement one in exclusion of all other considerations. So, thank you.
Councilor O'Malley, hold on. Councilor O'Malley.
I was just clarifying the question that Councilor Spatafora asked, and I saw some nodding in the audience. Does the City Council get to approve the design prior to construction?
It could be shared with them. I mean, I'm not really sure of that process. We have the funds to release the consultant to begin design work tomorrow, but I don't know if that was put on as a restriction on the CPC paper. I don't believe it was.
I wasn't aware of that, so that's why I figured we could clarify. It sounds like it's still, but if the member or the chairperson of the CPC would like to speak.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. The way we have structured this is the 250 goes to design. My understanding is there is no decision made regarding anything within the design. The applicant is going to go and walk through their design process, and we will ask them back in to go over that design, to review it. I would suggest it may be a great process if you also ask the applicant to come back in and review the design. I think that would be wonderful. I think it would be a nice precedent to set. And then, because we can't, when the invoices come through, we need to validate that what's coming through is actually CPA eligible. So we need to look at the design, make sure they haven't added like ponies and other things that actually are not CPA eligible. So we will, yeah, I'll try a little levity here. All right? Because we need to make sure that the CPA money is going to CPA-specific elements. And what is in front of you right now is for only CPA elements. Does that help? The applicant will be coming back, you will be coming back in to review the design with us. We specify that in our award letter.
Councilor O'Malley, you good?
I did have other things to, not for, thank you. I really appreciate that clarification. So it sounds like that was a suggested amendment to the bonding authorization, but it's not something that is automatically in there. So I did want to just kind of generally talk about your amendment as well as the overall project. And I wasn't going to talk because I lost my voice. So we talked about heat islands. We've talked about community outreach. We've talked about crumb rubber versus organic infills. And we talked about the spectrum in between. Some people talked about horticulturists and how we can use different types of grass and trees and plants to make this field more resilient and maybe more shaded. And I think that it's important to know that however we end up here tonight, and I think it's important for the public to know, that my fellow councilors, as well as the city staff and the members of the CPC, while we might not always agree on each individual part of this, all of us up here who are working on this have the best interests of the community and the children. I think that we just have different opinions. But I do think it's really important for us all to know that the best interest of the community and children is really paramount here. I am in support of the amendment to restrict it to some type of organic infill, and maybe even with Councilor Kamel's suggestion that it just has to come back for approval if it is something alternative to that, or Councilor Winslow's amendment And what was just suggested about final design approval, I think that also sounds great. I think what we're really getting at here is how can we compromise so that there is a mutual trust between each other here and the public. And I think that if we go about this, putting those stipulations on the bond authorization, I think we're going to get to the best result, and we're going to build that trust that we're desperately looking for. So I appreciate all the really great dialogue and the public comment tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we've been making a mistake by restricting the people that are going forward with this. You don't know what's going to come out. The other thing is, I'll never believe that as a city councilor that you don't have any input. I have never seen that happen. All the municipal building committees I've sat on, councilors that saw something not going right would appear before those committees and state what they see as a problem, or state where they see something not being cost effective, or state where something that might be dangerous. We always have that ability as a city councilor. Any one of us, those meetings, you would never be refused to appear before the committee at a meeting to add some input to a project like this. So don't ever feel that we're ever out of anything, because we're not. So I think we should move forward with it, but I'm not for one that would want to restrict the process. If something comes up in this 2-year period that shows that this is absolutely could be devastating for children or kids playing on it, then I don't think we're going to sit back and just let that happen as a city council. And I don't think Councilor Murphy, as the councilor of that ward, would ever allow that to happen. I certainly wouldn't want to tangle with her. Because if she finds out something isn't right, she'd be up at every one of those meetings. So I think we got to have a little faith in our city government to do the right thing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on here. I mean, first of all, I'm involved in every meeting, as is Councilor Winslow. So, I mean, we do have representation. It's not like, it's kind of like the Municipal Building Committee. You know, we have councilors who are going forward, and we're building City Hall. You know, not everybody is involved, but yet you are represented at those meetings. You know, we have, you know, written articles, mostly Mr. Winslow, Councilor Winslow, edited a little bit. You know, in those we talk about alternative infill. Trust me, neither one of us have made a decision as to which way we're going. Getting the prices on everything, understanding what the landscape is like, taking all that information in is you know, Mr. O'Neill said, you know, is what we're doing. We've been doing it for months now. We've been doing it for actually, I feel like I've been doing it for a decade now, but you know, this is something I think that is critical. If you feel more comfortable and you would like another counselor to, you know, be involved, any of you are welcome to join our meetings, have your input. That's, you know, that's not a problem at all. We are here not to push any one thing. We are here to create a good field for everyone's use, a safe field for everyone's use. That just is on our watch, nothing else, nothing less is going to happen, okay? So, you know, I think I do not want to see this limited. I want to see all of the alternatives. I want to understand what's happening. I'm hoping the EPA results will be out. I mean, I've been reading, you know, I'm waiting for them kind of daily now. They seem imminent that they will be out. And we'll have things to talk about. This is not being done in a vacuum. Okay, the meetings are open. You know, we certainly, you know, would love anyone to come and join us and talk through it. So that's the way I would suggest moving forward. And I would hope that you would all support this going forward. What? I'm not sure what that does, to be perfect. I've been thinking about that. Councilor Di Maria, how would you amend your motion?
1 second. Are you all set?
Yes.
Okay. I have a few more before. Counselor Spatafora.
I hit it by mistake, I apologize.
Okay. Counselor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. And I do agree that we should not limit. We should really keep the field wide open for all the things. I think that Ms. Orsino had suggested that we really put some other restriction on this, that we do see the design after, and then maybe we do put that and make an amendment that the council has final approval on whatever fill is chosen, so it's not, whether it's crumb rubber, whether it's anything above or below the cost, that after we see the design and after they've made a suggestion of what the infill would be, that gets final approval by the council. I think that gives us the protection, and then we know exactly what we're talking about. Are we talking about coconut? Are we talking about cork? Are we talking about crumb rubber or pellets or anything else? At least we know exactly what it is, because right now it's a whole wide field. So I would suggest and make an amendment that we do have to see the design, and that we have final approval of any infill, no matter what it is.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor Di Maria.
Yeah, and I'm actually fine with that. I think the thing that concerned me the most was the word synthetic, and it was used in the paper, and that is not organic. So what was said was they're going to identify synthetic only. So I think I would rather, I'll go with your amendment, but I'd rather, instead of saying synthetic, I'd rather say alternative.
Alternative.
Alternative? Are we?
Well, actually, that is, may I?
Yeah?
Councilor Murphy.
Okay, just.
Oh, I see, alternative synthetic.
No, but don't forget, this is the recommendation from the CPC. So you want to amend the CPC's recommendation to say as several alternative infill products. Just get rid of the word synthetic.
Right.
As new technologies has entered the infill turf market. So that would be one amendment, okay? So it's alternative infills on the CPC's recommendation. So
Right.
before we accept the CPC's recommendation,
We have to amend
right,
that.
you'll amend that.
Yeah.
And then after that, Councilor Crow's motion
To review.
to review the
Right. So it's two.
final product.
Two amendments.
Final design.
Well, it's not, I guess, yes, two amendments, but one is to the CPC recommendation, and the other
And the
one
other
is
one's
to the
to-
paper.
We have to have two votes.
To the bond
Right,
from
to
the mayor.
bond, right, so
Yes.
this is two separate.
Two separate, yes.
votes.
So by striking out synthetic and just going with what the CPC has recommended, that would be my first amendment.
And add infill. So it would be the second and last paragraph would read, although Malden CPA funds are not available for any synthetic turf option, the Malden CPC has respectfully requested that the applicant consider several alternative infill products, as opposed to synthetic products, as new technology has entered strike synthetic and put in infill turf market.
That would leave it open. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Di Maria, seconded by Councilor Camille, to amend the recommendation from the CPC.
Yes.
To change the word synthetic to alternative infill.
No, to strike the word synthetic. Okay, and in the first, in the first iteration, consider several alternative infill products. So you're going to replace the first synthetic with the word infill.
Yep.
Okay, and as you continue along, as new technology has entered the strike
Synthetic and put
and just
infill.
say infill turf market.
Okay. On Councilor Di Maria's amendment, seconded by Councilor Camille. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Now we're going to
Accept.
accept the recommendation
of the CPC.
Should we
As
do her
amended.
amendment first?
Huh?
Should we do her amendment first?
No, because hers is, before we can vote on the bond.
Okay.
Before we can vote on the bond, we have to accept the CPC's
okay.
amendment.
Okay.
The CPC's.
No, we already accepted the committee report a long time ago.
Well, the Finance Committee report, yes.
Okay, on Councilor Murphy's motion,
So wait a second now, wait a second now. Is it, if it's the whole report, are we voting on it in totality?
we are going
So
to,
we know what we're doing, right? Okay, so
we're going to vote on the amended recommendation of the CPC to accept it.
and not the whole committee report, because the whole committee report would include the bond.
No, the bond is a separate vote. So right now, we are going to take a vote on accepting the CPC amended recommendation.
Yes.
Point of inquiry.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I understand may not like what the wording is of the Community Preservation Act, but I don't know how the city council can amend their recommendation. Their recommendation is what their recommendation is. You know, we can change what our vote is, but we don't have the authority to change what their recommendation is or amend their recommendation. We can just, their recommendation, I guess I'm repeating myself, their recommendation is what it is. So I think it's inappropriate for us to even try to change their recommendation. Take that one, huh?
Yeah.
We can't be more restrictive?
Councilor O'Malley.
So I agree with Counselor Anderson on this. I agree on this, on Counselor Anderson's suggestion here. I don't think that we need to accept the recommendation of the CPC. I think that they've provided us their recommendation and we've received it. We don't have to say that we accept it. I think we just need to now go forward with the bond authorization and add these stipulations to the bond authorization. That's just how I would see it procedurally.
Councilor Kamel.
Sorry about that. I think that's an important point. The last sentence you just put in there is important because I think, and if we may invite Julia Rossino back up here to comment on this, I think we have to make sure that the bonding, because we're proposing that the bonding get paid back by those funds, we have to make sure that it qualifies for those funds by accepting their recommendation. So either we put it with the bond or we accept it as a separate vote. And I will defer to Ms. Orsino.
My apologies. Can you restate what I'm going to answer?
Why am I here? Why am I here? The recommendation of your committee, the paying back of the bond is predicated upon us accepting that, those restrictions, basically, and how we bond, what we're borrowing to do is limited by what the CPC recommended. So either we accept it as a separate motion, or we make sure we have it as a covenant or whatever of the bond. We just need to make sure we do it right, one way or the other.
Councilor O'Malley.
So I think what you would do is you would take all of their recommendations and put those into the bond authorization. I don't think you formally have to accept their recommendation. You just have to see that this is what they're recommending, and you put that language into your bond authorization.
May I?
But if there's a yes.
I would like to defer to.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah, defer to you, yeah.
Great. So we have two stipulations in the actual bond, and that is that monies go to the outdoor classroom and that monies go to the drainage. That last bullet, if you will, we have no oversight over anything, so that was just, we have respectfully requested, and the applicant and the mayor have accepted our request. So if you want to change the language on that, it's within the spirit of what was meant, and if I can speak for our committee, we're fine with that. Because the two stipulations really are the outdoor classroom and the drainage, that those two items must stay within the project.
So I agree 100%. And I think that the things that, because we want to make sure that we include in our bond authorization I count 5 things. That it's a 10-year term, that it's for $1.45 million, that it will not exceed 4.25% interest, that there's an outdoor classroom, and that there are drainage improvements. And we are looking to add one additional requirement, that there be potentially an approval or whatever we decide by the city council of the infill, or whatever we decide. So there are the 5 requirements set forth by the CPC, and we are looking to add one additional requirement to the bond authorization. Their recommendation is their recommendation. It's like when the planning board sends us their recommendation, we receive it, we take it into consideration, we include what we want to include, we add what we want to add, and then we move forward with that. So thank you for all the hard work that you've done. You've got us really far.
So wait a second now. I don't see what stops us from having 2 votes. Approve it, approve the CPC recommendation, and then also incorporate those in the bond. Let's just make sure it's belt and suspenders, dots the i's and cross the t's. Let's just do it to make sure it's done, even if it's superfluous, and get it done. And take 1 vote, we're done, we make sure we did it.
Did you have something to add?
I forget, because I agree with, I agree with what Councilor Kamel just said.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to vote to accept the recommendations from the CPC, okay? On Councilor Murphy's motion to accept the recommendations from the Malden CPC, all those in favor, aye. All those opposed, recommendations have been accepted. Okay, so now, on Councilor Crow's motion to add, amend? That the city council has final approval of any infill. Seconded by Councilor Spatafora. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? It's been accepted. The amendment. On Councilor, I need a roll call for an acceptance? Oh, for the bond. We're doing the bond now. That's a separate vote. Okay, all right. Okay, yep. On Councilor Kamel's motion to approve the bond as amended, seconded by Councilor Murphy. The clerk will call the roll. Councilor O'Malley.
I really think it's important that we read all of the stipulations as part of the bond authorization. I mean, maybe, I'm just thinking procedurally, you want to make sure that the bond authorization has all of the things that are really important, like, because it's not, at least when I look on here, I mean, if you guys are all comfortable with it, it's fine. I mean, I just think it's important that we read all those.
Can I call the roll?
Councilor Murphy.
I was just going to say, the bond authorization has to be, I wish our controller's not here at the moment, but, oh, actually, our treasurer's here. The bond authorization, from my understanding, has to be written in a very specific way, which is why the rest of this was put after it. So you can't really go in and, there's a very specific way that it has to be written, so we can't really play with that too much. But we can, yes, John, we could have our treasurer come up.
That is correct. The bond authorization needs to be exactly as it's worded in the vote here. Then the restrictions are a second vote, which the council has already taken.
So. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Thank you for hanging in with us.
No, my pleasure.
We're going to call the roll?
Yes.
So what's the motion?
As written.
As recommended.
Yep, the bond as written.
Okay. Murphy. Ready?
Ready?
Counselor Anderson? Yes. Counselor Kamel? Yes. Counselor Condon? Yes. Counselor Crowe? Yes. Counselor DeMaria?
She said yes.
Counselor Matheson? Yes. Counselor Murphy? Yes. Counselor O'Malley? Counselor Spatafora? Yes. Counselor Winslow? Yes. Council President Seeker?
Yes.
It passes.
Next order of business.
Committee report, Rules and Ordinance, paper 224-19. Order, be it hereby ordained that section 6.20, amusement machines of the revised ordinance of 1991 be further amended by striking portions and adding portions per the attached document.
On Councilor Spatafora's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Spatafora for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. This paper was a request by Kevin Duffy in the mayor's office when reviewing some of our ordinances. There is an ordinance on the books that has several issues that have come up in discussions with various potential tenants in the city, as well as existing businesses for several years. They are the fees on amusement machines, and right now, the way it's been written, it's been $100 per machine, plus a $100 fee. So what the request was to be more in line with some of our sister cities is to change the pricing mechanism, and the ordinance committee decided on a sliding scale, and that is 1 to 25. It would be $50 per machine, and anything over 25, meaning at the number 26, it will go down to $25 per machine. That's an annual fee, and that will also still have an annual $100 licensing fee. So, for example, I think we looked at the town line. Let's say they had 100 machines. They were paying $10,000. It now will be cut down to $2,500. And this was something we looked at all of our other cities, and we think the intent, I've done a little research and called out to Karen Anderson, is when they first came out, these amusement games, they didn't want them to be gambling-like. There was also language in the ordinance that it was a sticker placed on all the machines, they could not be gambling. And they didn't want these arcades where new technology came out, place of young youths coming in and creating havoc. So they put this high licensing fee on these machines. It's been on the books, I think, since the 70s. And so we're requesting that the committee support the recommendation to go, again, from 1 to 25 to $50 per machine. On the 26 machine, go to 25. And also striking out language about amusement and arcades. There's language in there that would limit the use of those. If you had only amusements, you could not have any other type of use in that establishment. So we're going to strike that from the entire ordinance. So that would allow places that want to have video games now to have burgers, et cetera. So we do have a couple tenants looking at various properties in the city, and they are coming out with some concepts. And this was one of the things where they looked at it, and they did ask the mayor's office, looking at other cities and towns, which they were right, that we were pretty expensive. So the ordinance committee did vote 4-0 on this. Any questions, more than happy to answer them.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm happy to co-sponsor this with Councilor Spatafora. And actually, Councilor Kamel in the ordinance committee said something that was pretty, I think, poignant. We're losing these types of businesses in Malden, Ryan's Family Amusements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever we can do to ideally make it easier for these types of businesses to remain so that there are activities for our young people to do rather than being out on the street doing who knows what, I think we should do that. So I'm fully in support of this, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was able to go to the opening of a Spicer World and meet one of the business people who was talking about bringing in a more amusement thing. And so what we're seeing is that there's these gaming studios that are coming in. So this is one of the potential things here. And, you know, talking to Kevin Duffy, I mean, one of the strategies downtown is that, you know, brick and mortar retail is a real struggle now because you can get anything, you know, in a day or less from Amazon and other places. So we're trying to set up our downtown to have restaurants in these, you know, amusements like Bodeborg, like video gaming and other type of things, so that that's something that people want to experience. You can't really get that kind of physical experience so much, you know, over the internet or delivered to your door. So it's a great strategy. I think if you come down to Malden on a Saturday or Sunday compared to what it was 10 years ago, you're starting to see the impact of that, and this will just open that opportunity more. And we've come a long way from the honky-tonky things down in Revere Beach or whatever, that I think that was trying to regulate arcades strictly. So I think it's kind of a new age, and it's great we're updating our ordinance to reflect that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora?
So any other questions looking for the support? I do want to thank Council Winslow. He was on the committee as well and made a good point. You don't have to look too far from some of our other cities that have, you know, these new bowling alleys now. I think it's, you have Kings in Linfield, you have one in Somerville, I don't know the name of it.
Lucky Strike.
Lucky Strike. I took my son, and it's more of an experience, things you can't get online. And there's a couple potential suitors looking at Malden, so I think you're going to start seeing this. And these are geared to adults and children, so it's not just for the kids. It's not going to be a honky-tonk, as Councilor Winslow said. Any questions? I think Councilor Murphy has.
Councilor Murphy.
I just had one question, and maybe it's just because of my age, but when I think of amusement machines, I think of like pinball. Okay, something like that.
It's your age.
Huh? That's my age.
I'll second your age.
I know it's my age, but I guess my age leads me to question this. You know, if you're sitting in a gaming device where you're actually being interactive with this device, like you would at one of these new places, are they machines, or should this say amusement machines / devices?
It's a good point, but I think looking at some of the other cities and ordinances they classify these all as amusements because they separate it. It's not a gambling device, it's only used for amusement.
Okay.
So that goes from your pinball machines to your whack-a-mole to your skeet ball. It's all part of that. Because I looked at Somerville's after this meeting to see how they wrote it. They didn't. And the other thing too was, in this was, I was reluctant. This was one of the things I did forget. I was looking at my notes. Was it also was talking about machines that dispense coinage for these? That was in the ordinance. We removed that because nobody puts in coins anymore. There's no more tickets. It's all done by cards.
Right, but I mean, actually, I guess, you know, I'm thinking more of like the true video interactive devices where you think you're in another world. That's kind of what I'm leading to. So I'm not showing my age now. I'm showing the future. So, but you know, that's why I was just wondering.
Like a virtual reality?
Yeah, are those more devices than machines? I guess that was my only question. So.
Machines, not amusements. She was questioning the word machine, not amusement.
I mean, a video machine, is it amusement? I know you're putting on the goggles and doing that. I don't know what would classify that as. I'll yield to Council Winslow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did happen to go by Kevin Duffy's office, and he showed a little bit of a mock-up of what at least one of these places is. It'd be a combination of, you know, one of the things that's happening online is that there's these competitive video game things where people all over the world, so you could actually kind of have your team come to this place and play video games, you know, as a team in the one place, which gets hard, you know, in a home or whatever. And the other thing is there'll be some virtual reality part of this. I mean, I haven't done a lot, but you need kind of big open space to do virtual reality because you're moving around and stuff like that. So it's not something that's you do in your living room or whatever. So so this is the type of thing. It's something. It's not so great to do at home. So having some kind of video, it is one aspect of this kind of new thing. I mean, but pinball machines can be it as well. But I think it's a new aspect of these, you know, amusement parlors or whatever. And
so is it machines or machines?
Well, I mean, I think a machine is, you know, very broad. I mean, a computer is technically a machine. Anything
that's, sort of not a human being that does something as a machine. So I think it's pretty
And Council Murphy, so I mean, we could always look at this if that becomes an issue. One of the concepts that was shared with us was it is going to be a restaurant that has machines, video games, and it is open to the public. I don't want to share names because nothing's been signed yet, but after I think 7 or 8 p.m., there's no children allowed, and it's adults, probably my age, playing vintage video games and drinking craft beer and having burgers. The American dream. So, that's what this concept is. So that's what the hope for is. So again, looking for the council support.
So we get to go there after our council meetings?
Call the vote, yes.
Team building?
Okay.
Okay, on Councilor Spatafora's motion to enroll this ordinance as amended. Clerk will call the roll.
No, we didn't amend it. We didn't amend it. No amendment.
No amendments? Okay.
No, it looks.
My paper says amended, sorry.
Counselor Anderson? Counselor Kamel?
Yes.
Counselor Condon? Yes. Counselor Crowe? Yes. Counselor DiMaria? Yes. Counselor Matheson? Yes. Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley? Yes. Counselor Spatafora?
Yes.
Counselor Winslow? Yes. Council President Seeka?
Yes. Ordinance is enrolled. Next order of business.
Committee report, rules and ordinance, paper 211 of 19. Be it hereby ordained that section 9.36, storage containers of the revised ordinance of 1991, as amended, be further amended pursuant to the attached document.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam
Oh,
President.
wait a minute, sorry. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Spatafora for the committee.
I lost my place. Thank you, Madam President. So this paper was something brought to us by, I want to make sure I get this right, it was Building Commissioner as well as our compliance team. There has been some loopholes in terms of our motor vehicle and storage containers. Right now, there seems to be an uptick in storage containers, and the reason why it also says motor vehicles is tractor-trailer trucks or pods or any shipping containers now that people are buying and leaving on their property. There is no way right now for the compliance team or the building inspector to make sure that they are, first of all, what's inside them. Second of all, if they are still stable from a building situation, sturdy. And there's no real ordinance right now that precludes them from being on a piece of property. So the building inspector, commissioner rather, has asked us to put in revise this ordinance to include now storage containers and the ability to register them annually. And right now, it's going to be a $50 permit per container with a limit of 2 on residential property, and we were debating on commercial, but right now we're going to leave it unlimited. So again, it's going to be a $50 annual fee on limited to 2 on residential properties. 3, in anything less than 30 days, does not have to get a permit. And the reason why that is, if you have a pod, you're moving, why charge somebody $50 if they're going to be moving? So this is only a way for us to know, A, the container's there, and if it's starting to get unsightly or it's falling apart, the commission doesn't have to renew it. And the reason why this come up, this is not a maybe scenario. It has come up where there's several residential properties. That's the real focus now. And there's no way to ask them to get off to take these off the property. Another thing too is the compliance team did go around and do a pretty quick spot check, and I believe there was over 200 of these containers, throughout the city. About half of them were on commercial properties. Now, they're not trucks that are backed up to loading docks. These are trucks that are used as storage containers. So the focus is on making sure that we can have some controls in a residential capacity, and or if a trailer is falling apart and not structurally sound anymore, or there's materials inside that we don't want, we don't have to give them a permit, and then we can ask them to remove it. And if they don't remove it, we will remove it at cost and charge the client or the owner. Any questions? More than happy to answer.
Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. This is really not a question, actually. This was a topic that came up in the problem properties unit. And you know, it is really, that's the committee that, you know, really looks at when there's an issue like this. Lots of people around, you know, the police, the fire, the health department, and, you know, the commissioner and the compliance, really sort of put your heads around and try to figure out how do we tackle some of these issues that are problem properties. So, and this one was one that our hands were tied. It really wasn't in a fire, so they couldn't, you know, get things off there. It wasn't any of those things. So it was a decision that really needed to be made, that an ordinance needed to be put in to be able to help attack these. So I really want to give them credit for really sort of, and Ms. Louise for helping to put this together with the commissioner to make sure that we can address some of these issues, especially on the residential, but the commercial as well. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, how many of these residential properties are affected by, would be affected by this ordinance change? The sponsor, please.
So, Councilor, when the compliance team did a thorough study, a quick study, there's probably only about a dozen properties that fall into the residential category, but a couple of them have, like, there's two properties, I believe, that are properties that have 4 of these trailers in their yard. So, in the building commissioner, I don't want to speak for him, maybe he's watching. This is not a way to say no to putting these in the property. This is just a way to make sure that they still look structurally sound and that we can limit the amount. He made it very clear in the meeting, he does not want to say you can't have one, but you can't have 6. And if it starts to fall down and they're abandoned, which I think in one case where there's 4, they're literally dilapidated, and we have no say. The fire department, like a car, or the compliance department, we have no controls right now.
So what would be the regulations around, how many would be the limit in residential property?
2.
On how big a piece of property?
2, period.
So if a person had a property that was bigger than single-family unit, 6,500, if they had 2 on there, that's not the same as someone having 3 times that amount of property and having 2. So is it the same 2 for?
Same 2. The other thing, Councilor Anderson, and again, I don't want to speak for the building commissioner, they've seemed to become more of a common sight on residential properties because containers now have become the standard for new sheds. And they're bigger than the past. I believe there's a square footage requirement when you do have a shed that you have to get a building permit. Well, these, because they fall under the definition of a trailer or a storage container, they don't need a building permit. So if this was a shed, they would need a building permit. But because it's a temporary structure, they don't. That's the other loophole.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam President. And another question to the sponsor. This doesn't have to do with dumpsters. This isn't, that doesn't constitute a pod. No. Okay, so this isn't that. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, to the chairperson, it says per attached document. I'm looking at the stricken language and the inserted language. Is that here?
Yeah, I didn't see, on my copy, I was looking for it, I was talking to Councilor, I don't see on the attached in my document, to be quite honest with you, Councilor.
I don't see a problem with this ordinance, I really don't, and, you know, I'm willing to support it. I like to read the ordinances before I pass them.
Yeah, I didn't have it in my docket either. I pulled up the minutes from the meeting, and was reading from that, that's what I was doing. I agree, I mean, I didn't have it attached.
Yeah, so I don't know, I realized that would put us in a pinch if we weren't to pass this tonight, because we have to enroll and ordain. I mean, we could do it in one meeting. I don't think there's anyone objecting.
I'll yield to whatever the council, I would just say the stricken language that, if I can recall, Councilor Crowe was there, and I believe Councilor Condon and Councilor Winslow might have been there, is originally Nelson had this, or the building commissioner had this limited the amount on commercial property. So you could only have 2 trailers on commercial property, which Councilor Condon has the old Project Triangle.
We expanded it to all property.
No, he wanted commercial too. We said you can't limit 2 trailers on commercial. If like Christmas time comes, they buy extra capacity and they store it. So we stricken that. And the other one was originally, I think it was $100 per trailer.
Right.
And I thought that was a little steep, so I stricken the 50. It was 50. And yeah, 30 days, there was a sliding scale, how much it cost. We just did a flat 50.
And who's the permitting authority?
So that's the other good point, Council. The other one, he wanted the council to vote on this.
Okay.
And from the preference of the chair, I just thought it would get cumbersome for every time there was a permit, they would have to come here. So now the building department will handle all that. And if there's an issue, especially on residential, the building commissioner said he'd be more than happy to let that ward council know, hey, we get a permit for 2 trailers on a residential property. It's not going to be common, but if it does, it's an anomaly, and the council should know, and he might not grant it right away until the council feels it's adequate. Because he also would know if they were doing construction there and they needed a trailer, instead of bringing them here, and I think it's a bad move from a public perspective. They have to come to the council to get a permit for a trailer. It's just not a good experience. And I felt his office could handle it, and he stricken that language and agreed.
Yeah, and, all that makes sense. I would like to be able to read the ordinance before I vote on it, but I do support the paper. Thank you.
Any other questions? On Councilor Spatafora's motion to enroll the ordinance, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson? Councilor Kamel? Yes. Councilor Condon? Yes. Councilor Crowe?
Yes.
Councilor DeMaria? Yes. Councilor Masterson?
I'll vote present.
Councilor Murphy? Yes. Councilor O'Malley? Yes. Councilor Spatafora?
Yes.
Councilor Winslow? Yes. Council President Seeker?
Yes. Ordinance is enrolled. Next order of business.
Committee report, license paper 23719, 23819, 23919, and 21019. We have outdoor parking, Andrea's
I don't have this on mine.
Citos, 29 Madison Street, Malden, Mass., 40 spaces. Andreos Citos, 25 Florence Street, Malden, 34 spaces. Rochelle Destario, taxi driver, and a lodging house, Lawrence W. French, 98 Laurel Street.
Councilor Murphy's motion to receive the committee reports. All those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Murphy for the committee.
Okay, first of all, paper 23719, I would like to just table for another review, if we could. I just want to relook at their...
Madison Street?
Yes, the Madison Street one. I just want to, want me to do both of them?
Madison
Okay,
Street?
I'll table both.
237-19
And 238-19.
and 238-19. Tabling them both?
I'm going to table both of those.
Okay.
Actually, I'd like to refer them back to license, if I could.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer those two matters back to license, seconded by Councilor Crowe. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? They've been referred.
As for the other two, 23919, taxi driver, he's new, we reviewed his Corey, his record, he's fine. He was voted out unanimously by for approval by the Finance Committee, so we would ask that the council approve his petition. License, know that the council approved the petition. It's already been in license. It's not a license. So on motion to approve the license?
On Councilor Murphy's motion to approve the license, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
And 21019 Lodging House on 98 Laurel Street. This is in Councilor Camel's ward. We've spoken, he's in agreement that this is fine, and it was approved unanimously out of, or recommended for approval out of the License Committee unanimously, so we would ask that the full City Council approve this petition.
Family auto loan?
No, they just had them in last week.
No.
I'm on the
Sorry.
Lodging House, did I miss them? I'm looking at
On
my...
Councilor Murphy's motion to approve the license, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay.
License has been approved.
And then
Was that a renewal?
The lodging house was.
No, the last one that you're going to talk about right now. I didn't think it was. I thought it was already renewed.
No, it wasn't renewed. We never renewed it.
It was in committee for another reason other than renewal.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
I think that might be
Yes.
on the docket improperly.
You might be right.
It should have been renewed in January.
It was renewed.
I'm pretty
sure
confident it
renewed.
was.
Pulled them in. So basically, it doesn't even need to be on the
Voted on,
docket
yeah.
because we did not rescind their license. So yes. So
It was in front of you in your
It was in front
committee,
of us,
but
yes.
there was,
yes.
it was not in front of you for that.
Yes. Yep. So
Okay. So do we have to vote on that?
we don't have to. Vote.
Okay,
No.
we don't have to do anything.
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, so I have committee report, personnel appointments, paper number 279 and 19. Janelle DeVitz, 30 Sheridan Street, Malden, as council appointment for the Cannabis License Control Commission.
Councilor Crow's motion to receive the committee report. All those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Crow for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Over the past few weeks, the committee has met with each of the residents who had applied to serve on the Cannabis Licensing and Enforcement Commission, and each person really brought an incredible amount of knowledge, expertise, passion, and perspective. And the committee was really extremely impressed with all the people that have stepped up and wanted to be on this committee. And after much consideration, the committee voted 4-0 to recommend Janelle DeVitz for this position. Ms. DeVitz is an accomplished attorney, brings a unique skill set that is not currently represented on the commission. And I make a motion that we appoint Janelle DeVitz as the council appointment to the Cannabis Licensing and Enforcement Control.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say it's not too often that we get a native Maldonian with credentials as impressive as Ms. DeVitz. I can tell you that this is really an excellent appointment that the City Council is making to the Cannabis Commission. I have no doubt that she'll serve very well. Thank you for serving, Ms. DeVitz. She's in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I want to say that we had two very good finalists that were under consideration for this position. Former Captain Tuxbury and Janelle, both of them great candidates. Both of them would add great value to as our representative to this. But it was clear that Ms. DeVitz had a set of skills that were missing otherwise on the committee, and that she was the right person for this position at this time, given the current makeup. And so I was glad to put her name in nomination for that appointment, but don't want to undercut or understate the value of the second candidate, who was the runner-up, Mr. Tuxbury, in that position. Janelle was the better candidate for what our needs were, and I certainly am glad to have her as our representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. And while I was not at the Personnel Committee meeting, I certainly have faith in my fellow members there, and I am very pleased and honored to support Janelle DeVitz tonight with my vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. I echo the comments made by the Ward 7 councilor. Ms. DeVitz added the balance we needed on that committee, and she was there from the beginning with her input at each of the meetings, and we just felt that she would meet the needs of this committee and give us a good balance up there. So congratulations to her.
On Councilor Crow's motion to appoint Janelle DeVitz to the Cannabis Committee, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The appointment is confirmed. Congratulations. And the docket is clear. Ooh, ooh. Counselor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. There were two committee reports from public properties that were left off that are relatively time-sensitive. You'll see at the back of your packet the minutes from last, the minutes from May 28th. There's paper 261-19 and 262-19. They're related to granting temporary easements on Commercial Street for the relocation of a bus line. I'd ask if we could receive these committee reports and act on them favorably so that the MBTA can begin its work. It was voted out of public properties unanimously.
On Counselor O'Malley's motion to suspend docket rules, all those in favor? All those opposed? Go ahead.
So then I'd move to receive committee report 261-19 and 262-19.
On Counselor O'Malley's motion to receive these committee reports, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The committee reports have been received. Counselor O'Malley for the committee.
So again, as I stated, they're the two papers that are detailed on the May 28th paper, and they basically are just granting the city temporary easements. We're not paying any money for this. It's just going to allow for ADA access when they put down their ramps. We need to go a few feet onto some private property. It was all friendly, so there's no taking involved. These are just easements that we will then register with the Registry of Deeds in Cambridge. So I would move, without stifling any debate, to approve the order 261-19 and 262-19. Thank you.
Second.
Counselor Kamel.
Oh, sorry, no, that's right.
Oh, sorry. On Counselor O'Malley's motion, seconded by who? Counselor Crowe, to approve these papers. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The papers have been approved. Next order of business.
I'd like to call a roll call on this, not because I believe there's nays, but just for security of the paper.
Okay.
It does concern a property right, so.
No problem. Clerk will call a roll.
Anderson, Counselor Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Kamel.
Yes.
Counselor Condon.
Yes.
Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor DiMaria. Yes. Counselor Matheson.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley. Yes. Counselor Spatafora.
Yes.
Counselor Winslow.
Yes.
Council President Seeker.
Yes.
Okay. 261 and
Order has been approved. The docket is clear. Anyone else? Docket is clear. Counselor DiMaria for personal privilege.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you very much. So it is with deep sympathy that I announce a GoFundMe page has been created for the family of Jeremiah Joseph, the 5-year-old Malden boy who was found drowned on May 30th in a neighbor's pool. It was a horrible accident, and as you can imagine, the family is devastated. His mother, who is 8 months pregnant and is beyond grief-stricken. Please consider helping this family. Jeremiah was a very sweet boy with a huge smile and was looking forward to enjoying the summer with his family. So I'm going to try to read the link out loud, especially for those that are still listening. So it's a GoFundMe.com/35 T as in Tom, X as in X-ray, 7 U as in uncle, dash funeral, dash expenses. So it is also on MATV. If anyone is still interested, they certainly can reach me.
They might be able to search GoFundMe for his name.
Yes, and again, his name is Jeremiah Joseph. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. After that, I'm just I know. No, I know. I just, that was an awful day in Ward 5. And for the family, I just can't even imagine the sadness. Anyway, this Saturday, June 15th, is the Malden Community Garden and the Friends of Oak Grove Fugi invite you to be a gardener for the day. So there's a family gardening day in the annual Fugi plant swap. Fugi's been doing this plant swap, I'm going to say, for probably 10 years now at least. It used to be at the Oak Grove Community Center, and the last few years has been down at the Malden Community Garden, and we've been thrilled to have them. The event takes place from 9:30 to 11, and the flyer says, whether you're an expert gardener or have never put your hands in the dirt, we welcome everyone to come and enjoy the great outdoors. Swap a plant, seeds, or garden-related items at the Fugi Plant Swap. Don't have any plants to share? That's okay, join us anyway. Help plant the pumpkin patch, dig and plant in the tasting plots, plant a plant to bring home, garden arts and crafts, donate a book to the Little Gardens Free Library, and take a new one home. And for the kids, earn a garden patch for all your hard work at the garden, 1 patch per child. The garden, for those of you who don't know where it is located on Railroad Ave between Bryant and Faulkner Street. So we hope to see lots of folks down at the garden Saturday morning at 9:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I talk about Flag Day, I want to go back to the granting of the easements. I think that was done improperly, so I think we should, Councilor O'Malley I'll defer to him, but I believe we have to authorize the mayor to, I've had the words out. Yeah, authorize the mayor to accept the easement.
Okay.
I think that's
Sorry.
on behalf of the city. So I want to make sure we do that correctly.
Okay.
So
we are going to suspend docket rules again, or we're all set? Okay.
I think it's Councilor O'Malley makes the motion.
Councilor O'Malley's motion.
Sir, the second
To
time.
authorize the mayor to accept the easements.
So I move to authorize the mayor to enter into the easements described in papers 261-19 and 262-19.
Second.
Yes.
On Councilor O'Malley's motion,
vote.
seconded by Councilor Crowe, for the mayor to accept the easements. The clerk
Outlined, right.
outlined in the agreement. The clerk will call the roll. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Councilor Anderson? Yeah. Councilor Kamel? Yes. Councilor Condon? Yes. Councilor Crowe?
Yes.
Councilor DiMaria? Yes. Councilor Matheson? Yes. Councilor Murphy? Yes. Councilor O'Malley?
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora? Yes. Councilor Winslow? Yes. Council President Seeker?
Yes.
Now I will talk about Flag Day.
Go ahead.
So this Friday is Flag Day, June 14th, as it is every year. And so the city welcomes everybody to Bell Rock Memorial Park on Main Street, the corner of Wigglesworth, on Friday at 5 p.m. To celebrate the flag and all that it represents. We have the Malden High School Band and the chorus. We'll be giving out some citations to people that really have done some incredible work in the city for us. We have the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts joining us, and so we wish everybody else just takes a little time out of their day to celebrate and honor the flag. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Right, I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow, Wednesday, June 12th, at 7 p.m. at the Police Station Community Room, we're going to have our Trafton Revitalization Project, a public meeting. We're going to be joined by Shadley and Associates, who have put together 3 very beginner conceptual designs that aren't meant to necessarily, we're going to choose one over the other, but they're a way to show many different features that could be possibilities for the future of Trafton Park. So we can, basically say we like this from Plan A and we like this from Plan B. We really encourage the folks in the community to come out and sort of have a voice in what's going to happen with the park. It's a beautiful park, a lot of history there, and it's one of it's a very special place for my family, and I know a lot of the families in the neighborhood. So please come on down and take part in the future of what's going to happen at the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, and just before that, if you want, Some Studios is having a kickoff from 5 to 7. So if you want to enjoy that, that's just right on Eastern Avenue as well. And you can enjoy a little bit of dinner and some Idle Hands beer before you come over to the Grafton Park meeting. The other thing I wanted to say is at the plant swap on Saturday, you can go out and see the great work of Eagle Scout candidate Max Batista, who just built 5 benches, 5 chairs, and a kiosk and some trash receptacles for the garden. So it was a very nice project that had a little bit of hand in, so that was really nice. So great to have those assets down there. And then also Malden Arts, a week from this Thursday, June 20th. I believe it's at 6 o'clock on Canal Street. It was 5:30, yeah, 5:30. At Canal Street across from Cambridge Health Alliance is doing an unveiling of some benches and artwork along the trail as part of their annual meeting. So come out to that on Thursday, June 20th at 5:30. Thanks. Great.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to bring everyone's attention to that this Saturday, 11 a.m., Malden Historical Society member Frank Russell will be doing a tour of the Salem Street Cemetery. There are a lot of historic Maldonians that live in this cemetery. Waits Mount, for instance, the Waite family is there. So you can find out some really interesting information. Again, this Saturday, the date is, one moment. This Saturday, June 15th, Malden Historical Society member Frank Russell will be doing a tour at 11 a.m. Second, on June 19th, the city will be celebrating Juneteenth. And finally, Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Forgot about that one. Good. And on behalf of the chair, I would like to wish everybody a wonderful summer, since Friday is the last day of school for our Malden Public School children. And that day from 12 to 2, we're going to bowl into summer at the Town Line 10 Pin at 665 Broadway. It's a free event that I host every year on the last day of school from 12 to 2. So whoever wants to come join us for some bowling, it is a free event that I put on with Anthony Dakotas, who is always giving back to our community. So I'm excited to be able to let him know that his amusement machines are now going to be a heck of a lot cheaper for him. And since nobody else mentioned, tomorrow night is the Stanley Cup final, and hopefully the Bruins will be holding up that cup, and I'll be going to a parade this week. No one? You guys aren't hockey people, huh? Go Bruins. We're going to repeat history tomorrow night, and it's the first time ever, Game 7 at the Boston Garden. Little bit of fun facts for you. So I can't wait till the puck drops at 8.
3 champions in the same year.
3 champions in the same year possible. And the mayor is doing Black and Gold Day tomorrow for all city employees, so make sure you wear your black and gold around Malden tomorrow. You need a shirt. Sorry, they're all gone. Anybody, motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.